I'll be back to talk about Terminator Dark Fate. This is not really a review, it's just me kind of ranting on what I thought about it. Of course, we all remember the first Terminator, the movie that made Arnold Schwarzenegger into a big time star. He plays a machine with living tissue because to make him look human, and so he can go undetected, so people wouldn't think he was a machine. He goes back in time to kill Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton, because she's going to give birth to the future leader of the Resistance. Michael Biehn plays Kyle Reese, sent back in time to protect her. Whoever thought the iconic line, "I'll be back," would be his signature catchphrase after that. It's like almost after that you couldn't go through an Arnold movie without him saying, "I'll be back." See? It's just like you just couldn't do it. What followed 7 years later would be Terminator 2 Judgment Day. This time Arnold plays a good Terminator who is sent back in time to protect John Connor and Sarah Connor. I mean, of course in T2 she's quite the female badass. She's tough. She's just tough, crazy, and she does it very well. Now, the way that movie ends, you didn't think there'd be any more sequels after that. You think, oh, this is where it ends. But due to so many other action movies coming out that year, like The Matrix and Spider-Man, they thought, oh, I think another T3 would be necessary. It's amazing how they got Arnold back to it. Now, from what I hear, Arnold did not like T3. He had fun making it, from what I saw in the movie, but that was not his favorite one. What is the plot? Well, basically, nearly the same as T2, except John Connor's a lot older. Linda Hamilton was not interested in reprising her role because the little bit they made for her character. So what do? They say she died of cancer. That's just the way to kill her off. And John Connor's living off the grid and staying to himself. Then he meets up with Claire Danes' character. Forgot her character's name. And then another threat comes to this time in the form of Christiana Loken, the blonde, sexy, new and installed Terminator. And another T-1000, once again played by Arnold, is sent back to protect them. And John Connor says, "I thought we stopped Judgment Day." And Arnold says, in Arnold's character, "You only delayed it." See, they're trying to say, you cannot delay the inevitable. Sorry. You cannot stop the inevitable. And it was pretty decent, and it was there just to be there. It was a decent action, decent car chasing, and a decent fight scene between Arnold and Christiana Loken. And what followed after that? Well, 6 years later came Terminator Salvation, the movie that didn't get a lot of praise because Arnold wasn't in it. Well, CGI Arnold was, and it tried to go in a more different direction, showing more of the future instead of just being a rehash of 1, 2, and 3. Which I did kind of admire. I'm not saying it was great, but I'm saying I admire it for trying to go in a different direction. I liked Christian Bale's John Connor. I guess you all heard about his angry rant on the set. Of course, it was video recorded. How could you not hear about it? And Sam Worthington as this cyborg. It's kind of like Ghost in the Shell. His mind was put in a robotic body. It's pretty cool. Effects were pretty cool and all that stuff. Some people thought that would be the end of the franchise. No, 6 years later came Terminator Genisys. And that movie got, you think 3 and Salvation were terrible? That movie got the worst of it. You want to know my opinion? Now, this is just my opinion. If you're going to hate me for saying this, you're entitled to do so. I didn't think Genisys was that terrible. I really didn't. I didn't think it was as great as 1 and 2. No. It nowhere near reaches the masterpiece that was 1 and 2. It doesn't do that, no. But I don't think it was terrible. I mean, it's flawed, but it was decent. Decent. I liked the idea they were trying to go for a Star Trek 2009 thing where, where Skynet gets more clever and decides to go back in time and try to kill Sarah Connor as a child, and somehow they go to that present and infect John Connor, and the timeline gets changed from part 1. I mean, Jai Courtney was okay as Kyle Reese. I don't think he was terrible, but he didn't play it to much enjoyment that that Michael Biehn played it on. I mean, he was okay, but he was no Michael Biehn, no. And Emilia Clarke as Sarah Connor, she was pretty good. She really shined as a young Sarah Connor. I mean, she does bear a slight resemblance to a young Linda Hamilton. And Arnold Schwarzenegger as the robotic Pops. The robot was sent back in time to protect Sarah Connor and all. And it's pretty clear after all those years of protecting her, they encountered numerous threats. So that's why he stayed with her, and the movie does give you an explanation why he ages, because it's living tissue. He doesn't age, but the living tissue does. And I thought it was pretty decent. I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, I know a good majority of you out there didn't, but I didn't think it was that terrible. But 4 years later, which is now, they came out with Dark Fate. What did I think of this movie? Okay. The action scenes were pretty good. No doubt about that. And the special effects were terrific? Yes. But in my opinion, well, okay, let's not forget Mackenzie Davis. She was pretty decent in her role as Grace. She's kind of like what Sam Worthington was in Terminator Salvation. She is a human brain in a robotic body. She's basically a cyborg. She's basically like Scarlett Johansson in Ghost in the Shell was. She was pretty good. She played her part with just as much conviction as Michael Biehn did in the first Terminator. Natalie Reyes was okay as Danielle, I think her name was. And Gabriel Luna is the evil Terminator. I gotta say, he's not terrible, but I think he's a terrific actor, but he just doesn't have that fearsome presence that Arnold had in the first Terminator and Robert Pattinson had in Terminator 2. I mean, you just don't really feel the threat whenever he's on camera. I didn't feel he was much of a threat. He just didn't. Although I do like his character, I like the way he can replicate himself. That was a pretty cool attempt. And Linda Hamilton was back as Sarah Connor. Okay, she was okay in some scenes. In other scenes, she comes across like she's just going through the motions. Arnold returns as another T1, another robot Terminator, who is sent back in time. But I'll get to that in a moment. What did I think of the movie as a whole? It was not very good. No, it was essentially a remake of T2 with only a few changes. Now, if you don't want this movie spoiled for you, don't watch the rest of this, because I'm not gonna be beating around the bush. No. Where do I start? The beginning. I look at it now, what they were trying to go after here, trying to establish a new savior of of that of that future of the survivors. So that's why basically they killed off John Connor, a very young John Connor, in the beginning. I get what they were trying to do. The problem is, establishes there's no more Skynet. There's Legion. Like, they destroyed Skynet. Wait a minute, how did they erase Skynet out of existence? That makes no sense. I thought the whole point of going back in time and killing John Connor as a kid was to ensure Skynet would be successful. So Skynet would have been would have been successful in that decade if John Connor died. And that makes everything Kyle Reese did in the first Terminator pointless! The T-1000 in Terminator 2, sacrificing himself for the good of man by lowering himself in lava, pointless. That was just pointless. See, the movie doesn't even understand its own logic. It doesn't even try. And and another thing I didn't like was here's what. I'm willing to suspend a series of disbelief, but this was just pushing it when we discovered that the T-100 who killed John now owns his own draping company and is married and has a stepson. Look, he may learn some things, but he is still a machine. Pops in Terminator Genisys was programmed to take care of Sarah and look after her and keep her safe as long as he could. The Terminator in T2 was programmed to keep John Connor safe. But the thing is, if they didn't know if there was going to be more threats, I don't think he would have lowered himself in lava. I don't think he would. So that was pushing it. That was just pushing it. I could tell Arnold was good in the film. He doesn't appear to be sleepwalking through this, but I could tell just he wishes he was done with this franchise. And now I'm wishing this franchise was done already. Terminator Genisys may have been flawed, but it was a far better movie than what I saw in Dark Fate. Dark Fate was just nothing more than a rehash. I mean, Genisys made you think it was going in that direction, and then it completely turns it around. So I give Genisys some credit on that. Dark Fate just, I don't know what Dark Fate was. It was just like a Terminator episode. That's what it felt like. And the way it ends, I'm not having any more expectations for another Terminator film. I'm not. If they even think of pulling one out of their ears, good for them. But don't catch me seeing it, because I have no expectations for another Terminator film. Alright? Well, that's all I gotta say. If you agree or disagree with me, you're entitled to do so. Sayonara. I will be back.